Professor Kishore Mahbubani, Ambassador Rodolfo Severino, distinguished panelists, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone. I'd like to thank the Asia Europe Foundation for giving me the opportunity this morning to speak on a subject of much importance, the prospects of rising Asia. As I started to prepare for this talk and I started to write down my paper, the first thought that crossed my mind is, we are talking about the prospects of a rising Asia, but what do we mean by Asia? Professor Mahbubani in his book has taken us on a journey of how Asian countries have gone through a period of economic advancement, but he hasn't given us a definition of what he means by Asia. I was at an event not too long ago where Professor Mahbubani was posed the same question on how he defines Asia. And taking a cue from his answer, I tried to look at this question a bit more philosophically. I remembered my own amazement as an adolescent in Cambodia when I came across words such as Apsara and Sulakshana and found that they mean the same thing in my own language, Bangla. Perhaps it is a bit difficult to define Asia as what it is. We need to look at it from a more philosophical angle. Asia is perhaps a patchwork quilt of different cultures, ethnicities, nationalities, languages, histories, and most importantly, a history of struggles. Struggles to win the right to self-determination, struggle for economic advancement, struggle to keep one's own heritage and culture alive. And perhaps it is despite the diversities, it's the commonalities that exist between Asian countries and people living in Asia, which creates a sense of Asianness amongst them and keeps Asia together and creates this place which we are calling Asia. In order to talk about the prospects of this rising continent, Professor Mahbubani and Professor Alan Chong as well during his speech has mentioned about the mobile revolution. Now I'm going to give a personal example of how I have experienced it in my own country, Bangladesh. 12 to 15 years ago, if I was talking about standing in the middle of the dense jungles of the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest, and surfing the internet and looking for things in eBay using my mobile phone, people would have thought that I've either read too much fiction or I'm just kidding myself. But today, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to mobile telephones, thanks to the mobile revolution, it is reality. Bangladesh today boasts nearly 25 million mobile phone subscribers. One company alone has a mobile phone subscriber base of more than 10 million. And that, if I may point out, is more than the population of Australia together. So, the mobile revolution has really brought an enormous amount of change and contributed significantly to the country's development. It is possible for entrepreneurs in Bangladeshi villages and female entrepreneurs to check for prices of vegetables in the local market through their mobile phone. People who for centuries did not have any access to communication technology are now connected. And if I may quote Mr. Iqbal Kader again, one of the pioneers behind bringing mobile telephone technology to Bangladesh, connectivity is productivity. These people have been connected, and communication technology has played an important part in their socio-economic advancement. Professor Mahbubani in his book has given us some really wonderful statistics and really interesting facts and figures as well. One which certainly sticks out to me is the fact that in 1st century CE, if I can quote from his book, 75% of the world's gross domestic product was contributed by Asia. It's sad and it's astounding at the same time that how so many of these Asian countries have become poor and impoverished with the passage of time. That is probably the subject for another day and another debate. But let us look at some of the more encouraging aspects about Asia. The book talks about the importance of pragmatism and the importance of education. Asian countries have, from China to Korea to India to Malaysia to Thailand to Singapore, all over this continent, have emulated Western procedures, Western techniques, and most importantly, they've also benefited immensely from Western education. As Professor Mahbubani tells us in his book, since World War II, thousands of Asians have gone to Western universities, have been educated there, and many of them have actually come back and contributed to their nation's development. We often hear about brain drain of our own people going overseas and staying there and working there. But there is also a process of reverse brain drain. As we speak, many immigrants, after spending a whole lifetime overseas, are coming back to their countries. That trend has been observed in India. That trend has been observed in my own country, Bangladesh. I know many personal examples of immigrants who, after having spent a lifetime and gathered enormous amount of experience in the field of science and technology, international studies, working in NGOs and various other places, have decided to come back to their country and contribute to its socio-economic development. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, a very encouraging trend. Now let us look at the importance of education in Asian societies. Professor Mahbubani has given us some really wonderful examples. To this day, in Asian societies across the continent, from China to India to Korea to Laos to Thailand, everywhere, parents still accord an enormous amount of importance to the notion of education. They're ready to sacrifice on their personal comforts to provide their children with good and quality education. And this, I believe, is a very important trend, and this is something really encouraging and inspiring. And if we are talking about, as Professor Chong was, about borrowing from our history and heritage and learning from our roots, this is something that has continued to be a major factor in Asian societies throughout the years. If we study the biographies of Asian high achievers, we will see one interesting trend. Many of them have come from very modest backgrounds, but one thing they had in them was the zeal and enthusiasm to succeed, and the other thing was themselves and their families believed in the importance of education and knowledge, and that is perhaps something that we certainly need to take note about. But as we speak of all these signs of optimism, hope, and inspiration, there is one dark cloud that looms over the horizon. Professor Mahbubani in his book has talked to us about not only achieving peace, but as he aptly describes it, the zero prospect of war, which countries in North America such as US and Canada and definitely the European Union have achieved. But can we say the same thing about Asia? We all know that Asia is faced with various challenges, and also conflict is one of them. There are so many flashpoints in this continent, from the nuclear-armed neighbors of India and Pakistan, to the Taiwan Straits, to the Korean Peninsula. There are so many flashpoints. While we have seen that these countries have made stellar achievements in terms of economics, and they have made some very important breakthroughs in resolving these disputes and discord, but a lasting solution, ladies and gentlemen, has not been reached yet. And despite the wonderful progress they have made, their successes could be marred by the prospect of another conflict. Asian countries, amongst themselves, need to find a full and comprehensive solution to solve these disputes and reduce the possibility of conflict, if not achieving the zero prospect of war. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Kishore Mahbubani has given us a wonderful book. As a young Asian, when I read this book, I felt encouraged, inspired, enthused. It talks about a new Asia, an Asia on the march. From the mangroves of the Sundarbans to the mighty peaks of the Himalayas, we can get a message of optimism that this continent is on the rise. Its prospects are immense. Its prospects are endless. And for a person who grew up in the 80s and 90s in a country in Asia, I felt really encouraged. And I felt that Asia can be a really prosperous place, and people who for centuries have seen the troubles of poverty will be able to taste the fruits of prosperity in their own lifetime. Thank you very much.